What's up, YouTube? This is your girl Megan from the HoodAstroQ. Welcome back to my channel, to all of my returning subscribers. However, if this is your first time joining me on today, it is here that we use information from celestial bodies to help us gain a better understanding of our favorite celebrities, world events, but most importantly, our damn selves. So, if you care, thumbs up this video. It's free 99. Subscribe to become part of the family. So today I am here to talk about Jupiter in Pisces. As I'm sure many of you may know, Jupiter recently entered Pisces and will stay there until around July. And I just wanted to talk about some of the effects that it could have and some of the things that we can all expect throughout this particular transit. Now, Jupiter will re-enter Pisces around December because it will retrograde back into the sign of Aquarius in July. But in December, Jupiter will be in Pisces once again. So these are just some generalized themes that one can expect from this particular time period, okay? So when Jupiter is in Pisces, I see this a lot, okay? I've seen a lot of astrologers, a lot of people talk about the more positive attributes. Which include positive change and abundance, right? Jupiter in Pisces could also bring about protection, especially depending on what house Jupiter transits or will fall in throughout this time period. There could also be lots of healing, compassion, empathy, forgiveness. These will all be very dominant themes during this time, which could absolutely impact you on a very personal level as well. There could be heightened sensitivity, acts of generosity and kindness, charity. So this is a time period where people may feel a lot more giving, right? People could take part in acts that could include like feeding the homeless, participating in charity or, nonprofit organizations. You'll see there being a lot of progressions and a lot of activity going on in that kind of sector, or just even on an individualized level. People can be more kind-hearted and giving and more empathetic towards the plight, especially when it comes to the suffering and the pain of other people. An example of this that comes to my mind is the current situation involving Israel and the Palestine, right? Where they are doing a lot of bombing over there in Gaza, and a lot of people are just appalled, right? Appalled and really taken back by the level of human suffering and tragedy and atrocity. And so there is going to be this kind of light that is shed upon the darker sides of life, the harsher sides of life. People are going to become a lot more sensitive to these things. And in that same vein of sensitivity, you can automatically expect the kind of PC culture to ramp up, right? Even when it comes to just other areas where people are going to be looking for sympathy. People are going to be looking for maybe even pity. People are going to be wanting to be handled with kitty gloves, right? And so if that doesn't happen, this is where you get into the shaming, right? All of the different types of shaming. Not to say that none of them are valid, but, it could definitely compound on this energy because transiting Neptune is already currently in Pisces. So having Jupiter in Pisces will absolutely kind of amplify this energy, right? Where it's just almost like everybody is really sensitive. People could take offense to almost anything. Almost anything can be perceived as discrimination or things like that. So, that's also something to keep in mind. Now, this is a time where people will be prompted or motivated or maybe even inspired to dream big, which is also really good. Jupiter in Pisces can help guide one in terms of like towards their dreams and ambitions. But, and this is where Hood Astro likes to add my little sauce to it, because in actuality, Jupiter is one of those planets that could kind of make you feel a little too big for your britches. So Jupiter in Pisces can create unrealistic goals, unrealistic dreams and desires to a certain degree. And a lot of these people, if you lean too far into this energy, could be met with disappointment. Also, resting and recuperating, regrouping are going to be very important themes. I've noticed already that a lot of people around me are feeling really tired, including myself. Okay, so expect a lot of individuals to be burnt out during this time. Okay, this could manifest in tiredness, fatigue, loss of motivation, or an increased need to take a break or just get away, especially when it comes to individuals with cardinal signs on the ascendant. So we're talking Cancer, Libra, Aries, and Capricorn ascendants. You guys could definitely feel this energy extra heavy. In fact, stress could take a toll on people, be it from a physical standpoint or an emotional or psychological standpoint, which will also put people out of commission. You could even see an uptick in hospital occupancies, I guess you could say, or kind of like at the beginning of the panoramic last year, how all of the hospitals were maxed out to capacity and overflowing. I mean, that could possibly happen. And I think that's very interesting considering that I have been seeing the news report there being a new variant in terms of COVID that is supposed to be more deadly, and it's supposed to be present in, I want to say, maybe 19 countries and all this other stuff. So there could be some major developments and advancements in that area. And so this is just a time where people need to be very mindful of their health, very conscientious of their health. Autoimmune deficiencies and all kinds of things could really come to the forefront, or things, illnesses and afflictions that could just straight up, once again, put you out of commission or really just force you to sit the hell down somewhere. Sit your ass down. Now, you don't want to lean too heavy into this energy because it can produce laziness or a situation where maybe you could be stagnant, you don't get a lot done. But to a certain degree, especially if you are someone who has worked yourself up lately and just is somebody who's always on the go, you need to slow down. Or someone who has endured a lot of stress, especially as it pertains to your work life or just, once again, emotionally and psychologically. This is a time where you may feel compelled to take a break. Some people may even find themselves like isolating themselves during this time period, which is not advisable. That would be an example of leaning too heavy into this energy. But to a certain degree, breaks, resting, time away, ain't nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Also, bad judgment. This could be very prevalent on a more individualized level, especially if you are more so of the archetype that could lean towards being very unrealistic, unpragmatic in terms of the things that you want to do and the goals that you set for yourself. People could be seeking, once again, pity and sympathy during this time. There could also be an increased level of dream activity, so more vivid dreaming, more lucid dreaming. Also, conflict over oil could be very prevalent. So this gas shortage that just occurred, where many of the states throughout the country had people scrambling left and right trying to get gas, hoarding, which is a whole different conversation altogether. It's giving very much Uranus and Taurus type of teas in terms of hoarding resources, but people were really scrambling trying to get gas. So expect more of that. There could be wars fought over oil, or more issues and afflictions when it comes to the oil pumps and all kinds of stuff in that regard. Also, art, entertainment, and music will take a surge. And I thought that was interesting too, considering that today, I want to say over the past 24 hours, Nicki Minaj has dropped music. J. Cole has dropped music. I want to say the Migos dropped some music too. So a lot of heavy hitters out here. They're putting forth some really good content and material, okay? I ain't mad at it. So if that's your thing, you want to go listen, go check them out. But a lot of people can even be inspired around this time, like artists, even on the individual level. If you are somebody who is a creative, you may be more inclined and inspired to produce, to create. All of that is tied back into that stimulation of the imagination, right? That Jupiter and Pisces can bring about. Same thing with movies. So, a lot of directors and film writers and all kinds of people could be inspired to create more content. Perhaps Hollywood could put out some really good material, or there could be some really interesting movie releases, film releases during this time. Now, there will also be an increased interest in mysticism and all things esoterical, which is great news for spiritual practitioners. There is going to be just a natural yearning for inclusion that Jupiter and Pisces brings about. So a lot of people are going to gravitate towards spiritual groups and things of that sort. But the downside to this is that swindlers, con artists, and cult leaders are also going to come to surface, which is not lost upon me that this whole Kevin Samuels debacle is really making its way mainstream. Kevin Samuels being a quote unquote image consultant. If you are not aware of him, just look him up. He's everywhere nowadays. He's growing in popularity and fame, and I can't help but to connect the fact that he's a Pisces sun, right? And we're entering this Jupiter and Pisces transit, and then of course with Neptune and Pisces as well, it's giving him a boost. It's giving him a boost, and he is very much fraudulent. Okay, he's very much a con artist in every sense of the word, but people are really eating it up. People are hanging on to his every last word, specifically men, but there are a lot of women who are too, especially after the interview he did with Tasha K, where he basically like repackaged his intentions and his channel. And he was full of shit, because when you actually watch his channel and the way that he describes his channel, they're two completely different things. And he's really good at taking truths and mixing them in ever so intricately with falsehoods. But different story for a different day. Don't even get me going, y'all. But just know, Jupiter and Pisces will bring about cult leaders, swindlers, and people are going to be gullible as ever during this time, y'all. It's going to be very easy to pull the wool over people's eyes, because people either want a savior, or they are going to once again want to be a part of something larger than themselves. In a weird way, there is that sense of community and inclusion when it comes to people like Kevin Samuels, who have very similar messages, or who in many respects are safe havens, in his case for men, bitter men. But like I said, I digress. We ain't even finna get all up in that. But just know, astrologically speaking, I peep game, okay? So discernment will be needed. Okay, this could also even have a lot to do with there being wars fought over religion and spirituality, which we could also tie back to the Palestine conflict. Okay, so deception, smoke and mirrors, propaganda will be at an all-time high. So will chaos and confusion. So these are things that a lot of astrologers will not be willing to tell you. A lot of the vanilla astrologers, they typically leave it at like the good things, right? Pisces, love, gumdrop, fairy tales, which may be true, but I want to give you guys a full understanding of how this energy, this Jupiter Pisces energy, could range. Also, people could be very impressionable, which kind of goes hand in hand with that being gullible theme. There's going to be a need for people to show and prove. So, it's okay to kind of, allow people to play off of your fantasies and the things that you want and make you feel good. But at some point, you're going to need people to put their money where their mouth is. You're going to need to see the proof in the pudding. Just be mindful of diving too deep into that energy and getting swept away with the currents, washed in the currents, like my nigga Flight Boss would say. Tee air. Shout out to Flight Boss. Also, there could be a resurgence of the war on drugs, which, if I'm not mistaken, I remember seeing an article on that in terms of Biden more or less ramping that back up. There's going to be a boost in private prisons. So they're trying to lock motherfuckers up. Make no mistake about it. In fact, there could even be a drive to restrict a lot of our personal freedoms as it pertains to Jupiter and Pisces. That could also be something that you guys want to be mindful of. And an example of this is an article that I came across, which was called Mass Supervision: How Restrictive Probation and Parole Systems Land People Behind Bars for Decades. And I just thought that was so interesting. That was like a relevant article during this Jupiter Pisces transit. That's crazy. So we're going to have a lot more of that, maybe even a lot more conversations geared towards that as well. And so the last time Jupiter was in Pisces, which was 2010, 2011, because of course it retrogrades in and out of the sign, there were some world events that took place that I would like to discuss. So one of those being on February 27th, 2010, an 8.8 magnitude earthquake occurred in Chile, which triggered a tsunami over the Pacific that killed 525 people. And it states that this earthquake was one of the largest in documented history. So it brings me to my next point, which is be mindful of different natural disasters, atrocities, and things that could occur by water, flooding, tsunamis, things like that, things that could occur at sea. Another example of that is on March 26, 2010, there was a South Korean Navy ship that sank off of the country's west coast, killing 46 people. Okay. On July 29th, there was a heavy monsoon that caused widespread flooding in Pakistan. Also in 2010, the Iraq war documents leaked by way of the WikiLeaks. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but I mean, they were responsible for essentially revealing that our country was in Iraq committing war crimes. And so with that in mind, which brings me to my next point, you want to keep your eyes and ears to the streets for exposés, right? Certain things coming to the surface, or scandals on a global scale. And that's actually like the climax of all of this fraudulent propaganda that's going on. So much propaganda going on. Every now and then, okay, there's bound to be a slip up. Some things are going to come out, and you just have to use your discernment. Also, on October 25th, there was another earthquake and tsunami in Indonesia that killed over 400 people. So, yeah. These are some things that you just want to kind of keep in mind. I actually wouldn't even be surprised if there were issues in regards to just water in general, especially in terms of like our water supply, maybe even biological warfare, things involving like gas, like deadly gases and things like that. So keep that in mind, or just kind of keep your eyes peeled to the streets for reports involving those things, especially like in other countries, like war-torn countries, maybe even in Gaza. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what's going on now. So yeah, this concludes my video on Jupiter and Pisces. Y'all drop down in the comment section. Let me know if I missed anything. I'll be more than happy to discuss it with y'all. And what you think. How do you feel about the transit? Let me know all of that and then some in the comments. And on that note, make sure you practice unconditional love, so that you can love others, which is very, very on brand with Jupiter and Pisces. And until the next video, I holla.